Okay, we're back again, starting on the next step in this elephant. Just getting the center or the first section of floor laid out here. I got the blank cut off of the rusty piece I took out. I got it squared up, set where it has to go. I've got it held in place with clecos. I got 4 clecos just so that I can get everything lined up exactly where it has to be. And then I'm going to put all of the bead roll lines in and all the places that have to be broke. It's got 2 breaks, one down and then one to bring it back level again. I've got to break 1 inch on the front here down and then trim it. The reason I have to trim it is if I try and break anything less than 1 inch on my break, it tends to just flex and not bend it. So once that'll be the last thing I do on the front here. This area right here, I have to step it down. That's where the front section of floor that goes up to the toe board screws down to it. And then I have to put in where all of the cross is, and I have to step that down about 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch just for plug welds all the way into the back over there. So I'm going to keep getting this all laid out. I've got to fix those 2 buggered up holes that I showed in the last video, and then I can transfer all of the holes that are on the underside to this sheet and get those drilled, and then I can start marking out all the beads. Okay, as I mentioned in the last video, I had to take, or not the last video, but the last segment, sorry. I had to repair this nutsert here, and this one here had a bolt that was broke off in it, and these things are kind of a dish shape, and that bolt was broke off flush with the top of the threads, which made it recessed about 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch in this nutsert here. So instead of trying to get that nutsert out because they're a real pain, I got this one out. This one, I just took a little strip of 16 gauge. I welded my 3/8 bolt to the bottom of it, or my 3/8 nut, and then I welded that repair in on the underside. But to get this bolt out, it was sticking through on the underside by 1/4 of an inch. And I think I've mentioned this before in my videos. This is the bolt that was in there. This would be the top sticking up through the floor this way, and the little bit was sticking down. Now, you guys have probably, if you've tried welding a nut to the bolt, it always ends up breaking off, and the problem is you don't get enough heat into the bolt itself, and it sticks to the nut, but not to the bolt, and then it just breaks your weld. What I have found works almost every time is weld a washer to the bolt first, and then weld your nut to the washer. And I like to use fender washers. They give you a little bit more area, and you don't take a chance on welding the washer to your base piece of metal. But anyhow, once I did that, I sprayed a little bit of WD-40 on the top side, which wicked into the threads, and this turned out really easily, other than the fact that I had a big bubble gum of weld on the side, which stopped the wrench from fitting. So next thing I'm going to do is I'll bring the panel back over, and I'll show you I've got it all set up here. Going to get the battery box cut out of it. So this is the opening in the old floor for the battery box. It drops into the floor. It's tipped down on the edge here, and it has a little bit of a shelf. I'm not quite sure what that's all about. There's no way I can do that with the tooling I have. And then it's got these depressions here, which brings the floor down on top of those cross members. So what I've done is I made a pattern from Bud Light again of the opening, allowing about 3/8 of an inch all the way around to be turned down as one of the last steps. I transferred that to my floor using the bolt holes here as the guide or the register for this, marked it out, and then I used a hole saw to do the corners. I'm going to use my zip disc next. I'm going to bring the corners in, dress this up a little bit, and then I can figure out how I'm going to tip these down, put a little step down in them so that they meet the tops of the cross members there. So that's what we'll get going on next year, get these all cut out, and we can go over to the bead roller. Okay everyone, we're back again here. I was getting everything laid out here and started bead rolling, and I was going to film some of it, but I invented a whole new book of cuss words because it's really easy to get your orientation wrong when you're bead rolling. And this bead, this step down that goes around here, I put it all in backwards, so I ended up having to planish all of that back out, then reset my dies, and then I started to put it in backwards again, and I had to replenish it, and then I had to reset my dies and get it right. And then I also ran into the throat depth on my bead roller wasn't deep enough, so I had to change the line from here to here. So now I've got this line that I've got to try and planish out on the planishing hammer. And yeah, so it's been a little frustrating and a whole lot of cussing and swearing. So I'm just about to finish it off here. I've got 3 beads to do, or three of these depressions to do here, and 1 over there. Then I have to break the front edge, step it down 1 inch across the front, and then I can do the breaks in it, and we should have a completed floor, so long as I don't screw it up anymore. So I'll bring you back here shortly. Okay everyone, we're moving along here. I got everything pretty much shaped up here. I've got some shrinking to do on it. I got a few stretches from when I screwed up with the bead roller there. I got the front edge broke down, the full inch on the front, and then I trimmed it off, and I got the 2 breaks on the back end. They need a little bit of adjusting. I got the opening for the battery box in, and the edge of it broke over, and I'm just working on the battery box here. Beading over that edge on the battery box here was all done by hand. I had to tap it all down all the way around to give it a nice finished edge. What I used, because of the way it's got this little step here where the actual battery box bolts in, it's recessed. So I took a piece of 1/4 inch of aluminum and I cut a relief in it so that I could clamp this to the edge of the subframe here. And that's what I used to bend this over, keeping my little step in here. I'm just starting on the battery box here. I've got a blank laid out. This is the battery box. It's got these openings for the hold down bolts, and they have access from the top for putting in your putting in the strap and the nuts. So what I've done is I laid it all out. I drilled a 2-inch hole with a hole saw. I've just relieved the corners. I'm just going to cut this piece out here, and then I can do my final trimming on the sides, and then I can break this. I do have to put a couple of beads in the bottom, and I'm just hoping that's not going to screw me all up here for doing the breaks in it. So once I get these pieces cut out of here and holes dressed up, we'll go to the bead roller, we'll put a couple beads in the bottom, and then we'll break these things. Okay, so we've got our blank all cut out here. I got everything trimmed. I got these openings for the hold down, and I've just laid out 2 marks for a couple of beads that have to go in the bottom of this. I've got the bead roller set up with the 3/8 bead dies. And we'll just get this started here. We'll go 1, we'll go 2 turns after it touches. Just going to go over it twice. That should be good. That's the first one. One, 2. Okay, we got our 2 beads in the bottom. Come out really nice. I'm going to coin them here, and I'll just show you what that is, and then we can start breaking this. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've showed this before, but once you put a bead in, the end of it puts a lot of stress into the piece of steel, and by coining it, which is, I guess it's a phrase somebody coined. So what I've done is just made a coining tool. I've got one for 1/4 inch, 3/8, as well as 1/2 inch. And I just took a piece of tubing that has a 3/8 inside diameter. I ground it flat and smooth, and then I cut a 45-degree angle on the edge of it. What you do is you set this over top of the edge of the bead and just give it a sharp crack with a hammer. What it does is pushes down around, makes a nice curve on the end of your bead, and takes that stress out of it. So, as you can see, I got a nice round end on that one now, whereas this one isn't defined or finished. So I'll just do the other ones. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to go break it, and then we can start making the end pieces for it. Okay, so what I've done is I broke the top flange on both ends first, so that I didn't get myself into a pickle where I couldn't bend these. Then I had to put the piece in. I had to take one end of the break off to lift it up to get it in there, but it's all set up here, ready to go now. We'll get this to 90. Got a little bit of deflection from them beads in there, which I expected. Okay, get her set up for the other one, and then we can start making the end pieces. Okay, we've got it all broke here now. I've got the holes marked, and going to drill those, and then we're going to make these end pieces. they also have a bead in them, which I'll put in. So, okay, we'll carry on. Okay, here we are back again. I got the battery box all finished up. After the brakes there, I got the end panels done. I rolled a bead in the ends. Then I put two bends in. One is about 20 degrees and the other is about 70. Plug welded them onto the sides. And then I took a couple of 5/16 by 3-inch bolts. I cut the heads off and I heated them up a couple times and I forged them down to about just under 1/8 of an inch thick. Drilled a couple holes and then I plug weld them in. That's for the battery hold down strap that goes across the top. Pretty much the same as what the original had. Looks like they were hand forged. They're not very straight or cohesive, so I did the same thing. So next thing, I'll bolt this in there, see how it looks, and then we can go from there. And there we go, we got the battery box complete. Next thing I got to do is a little bit of shrinking in the center here. When I made that screw up and had to straighten out my backwards bead there, I ended up stretching the metal pretty bad, so I'm going to use a shrinking disc and see if I can take some of that material out of there. Okay everyone, we're back again here, working on the next section of floor. I took the X-brace out that was in here. It's going to need to be straightened out and a bunch of work done on it. Drilled all the spot welds and cut off the bottom ends here. It's pretty rusty in a few places, so I'll end up having to fix that up. And then I cut all the spot welds down the sides on this next section of floor, and I've got a line marked 3 inches in from the top edge here. I'm going to cut it across there, and that's the next section I'm going to build. It'll include that step up there into the space in the trunk. So I'm just going to get ready to cut this out of here. It's going to be pretty tight quarters. But we should be able to get it out, and it shouldn't be too hard to make. Famous last words. So we'll bring you back here in a little bit. Well, we got a big hole there now. It was fun getting that piece out of there. There's a whole bunch of bad repairs done on that side over there. Brass welded in. Just terrible crap. So I've got the piece out now. Make some patterns and get this new piece built, and we can get it installed. And then I think the next thing I'm going to work on will be the lower quarter just behind the doors here. I can get that structure built and the first piece of the quarter, and that'll add a whole bunch of strength to hold the back of the car up here. So anyhow, we'll be back here shortly. Okay, we've got the rear piece of the floor there. I've got it cut to shape. I put in 3 beads. Each one of them is progressively 2 inches shorter than the other one. I've got the step up broke here. It's a little under 90 degrees, probably about 80, 85 degrees. What I have to do now is round these corners. This turns in, I'll just show you on the old one over here. So here's the old piece that was in there. And as you can see, the corners, they turn in to meet the inner fender well. So what I'm going to do is make a template, and then I'll cut the flat on top and the flat on the bottom, and I'll curve this piece. Then I'll trim these back and I'll weld the corners up. And we can put, there's a flat goes in on the edge here as well that gets welded to the inner fender right here. So we'll get this templated out, a little bit of beer case CAD, and we'll carry on. Okay, in the words of Rat Rod Bob, what I gone, done, and done is I've got this laid out. It comes in 4 inches. The radius comes around to the back here. I've got that marked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this along my line up to the 4-inch mark, and then I'm going to cut this straight down to the 4-inch mark as well. I'm going to leave this piece on. It's as much as I can. I'm probably going to trim it back a bit because it'll cause me a little bit of trouble trying to curve this piece because it's not just a 90-degree bend. And then I'm going to put the radius in here, and then I'm going to weld it along this edge, and I'll have to build a filler piece for the bottom because it's going to open up a gap here. Well guys, as usual, my thought process is flawed. So once I made the cuts, got everything trimmed and ground to where I wanted it for the curve, I put my duckbill vice grips on and I just curved this around. It went really nice, but the thing that I screwed up on is because this isn't a 90, when this curves around, it also goes down. So what ended up happening was I had this now protrudes down at the bottom. I had to cut 3/8 of an inch off at an angle, and I'm going to have to add 3/8 of an inch to the top here. So not terrible. What I did was I made a filler piece for here now. I'm going to get this tack welded in nice and flush. Then I can carry on. The other thing is this is now short because it's following the radius, so I've got to add to this. And then it's also got a flange on the outside that welds to the inner fender, so I'll have to make that at the same time. Okay, we got the first side done, the driver's side. I've got it all filled in. I've got my 2 flanges for plug welding to the inner fender. Turned out not too bad. I got a bit of a divot here I'm going to have to hammer out a little bit. But other than that, pretty happy with it. It is the floor, and it is going to get covered with carpet. So I'll carry on and get the other side done, and we can see how this piece of floor fits. Okay, we're back again. I've got both of these pieces all finished up, ready to go. I've got all my plug well holes drilled. I've got weld-through primer anywhere where there's an overlap where pieces go together. I've got everything inside here, the 2 frames. I've got them cleaned up, rust converter on them, and then a coat of weld-through primer. Just take you over and show you the rear section here. Same thing with it. I've got the curve all finished. I broke this, I stepped it down a little bit. This will get plug welded through from the top through both layers to the frame that's there. And I got weld-through primer on the back side of it as well. So next thing I'm going to do is get the 2 pieces put in here. Get the clecos and the bolts in to hold everything down. And then I can start plug welding it all together. Okay, we've got everything in here lined up, set up, ready to go. I've started plug welding it in, down the center, across the front here and down the edges. On the original, it was just tack welded onto the bottom, and then it was seam sealed really heavy. I'm probably just going to do the same. I've got a few spots here I'm going to have to put some screws in just to pull everything down tight. But I'll get everything welded up here, and then we can carry on to the next part. Okay guys, we're back again. I've got everything plug welded. tack welded. I still have to run a few beads down the sides here, hold everything down. I got everything cleaned up here pretty nice. We can carry on with the floor back there now. That'll probably be another 2 pieces, I'm thinking. Actually, it's going to be 4, because these pieces on the sides here I can't do in one piece with this. Got everything at the front here. I have to make this piece that goes up to the toe board, but I have to straighten the toe board out first because it's all bent and twisted here. So I think it turned out pretty decent. Got a fair bit of work left to do on it. I got to grind all of these plug welds and then give the whole thing a sand. So I'll just put you in the tripod here for a bit. So I'm thinking this video is starting to get pretty long. So I'm going to leave it at that for this time. And once we get going on the next, I'm not sure if I'm going to start on that front piece that goes up to the toe board, or whether I'm going to do the quarters just behind the doors to try and get that structure in there now that I've got the floors done up to that point. That'll help to hold the back up and keep the door gaps where they're supposed to be. I found a whole bunch of rust in the structure there, and I think that's why everything dropped down at the back here. So anyhow, guys, really appreciate you following along and subscribing. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.